Federation of Euro-Asian Stock Exchanges. Fast Talk series is continuing the journey, and today I am virtually visiting the Egypt, Cairo, where our FAS member, one of the most active FAS member, the board member, the Egyptian exchange is located. And my guest today is Executive Chairman of the Egyptian Exchange, Dr. Mohamed Farid Saleh, also the Chairman of Arab Federation of Exchanges. Dr. Saleh, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Armanu. It's always a pleasure to participate in whatever means we can do to increase the awareness about FIAS and about our markets.
Thank you, Dr. Farid. Let's start with the current situation that the whole world is in with the pandemic thing. How has the Egyptian market been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, and what are the measures taken by the EGX and the regulator to accommodate this current situation?
Basically, what we witnessed at EGX is more or less what other markets as well have been witnessing since the pandemic started to grow in terms of numbers and impact. And we, in the initial days of having cases in the Egyptian market, in the Egyptian economy, we started to witness some excessive volatility as other markets have been witnessing during that period. And then there has been a quite very, I would say, coordinated actions and measures taken by not only the exchange and the regulator in Egypt, but as well the banking sector, the central bank, and the government as well on various fronts. And since that date and the announcement of the concerted plan, or the concerted action plan that every single player is going to do in the market, we've seen a U-turn, let's say, in the volatility levels that we have been witnessing prior to that. So basically, let's say that pre 18th of March and post 18th of March, it's a totally different market. But before dwelling into the details and how we managed to pass, I would say, this turbulent period, it might be worthy of mention that one of the main pillars that we at EGX had to ensure was the safety of the personnel working in the entity. We managed to create networks whereby everyone can be working remotely, everything being conducted effectively and efficiently from home, limiting the number that are exposed, I would say, to the public as much as possible, implementing the curfew by the book, and that was to maintain the personnel and the lives of people that are working within the exchange, and as well brokerage companies. We supported them in developing plenty of technological requirements and advancements whereby we enabled the brokerage companies' employees to be working from home as well, and to have these connectivities up and ready to deal with the exchange in that regard. So this was our first and foremost plan to do to ensure that things are being run smoothly when it comes to the exchange, while maintaining I would say the health of the employees and the people working in the sector in general. The second point, when it comes to how we dealt as a country and as an exchange, of course, there has been the health measures being taken by the government itself. And this maybe is not the place to be discussing it, but this had a positive impact on how people's perception about the entire pandemic and its impact. The second aspect, that we had a concerted and coordinated action between the exchange and the other players that I mentioned previously, among which, for example, was that we facilitated the process. We proposed to facilitate the process of companies to buy treasury stocks, for example. And that was prior to the recent amendments that we required the regulator that approved it, and amendments within the executive regulations at the exchange, whereby we amended it very quickly to enable companies to buy their own stocks, given that they are the ones who know basically their performance and to what extent they are impacted by the COVID-19. And this gave a clear message to investors that the companies, the issuing companies themselves are quite confident about the performance. And we've seen a significant activation of the treasury stocks implementation.
Mm-hmm.
We enabled brokerage companies as well to be receiving emails rather than the traditional order types when it comes to trading and receiving orders to facilitate the trading process significantly. The banking sector announced in a coordinated action that they want to increase their investments in the market, and this had a positive impact. And then there was a big initiative announced by the president that there would be a stability fund to ensure the continuous trading function in the markets, and that was announced probably on the 20th or the 21st of March. And this as well had a very positive impact on stabilizing the markets and reducing the volatility levels that we have witnessed. Another measure that has been implemented by the government here, so the initiative was announced by the president to be implemented through the Central Bank of Egypt. And then we had the initiative by the government whereby we slashed stamp duty taxes on trading in the Egyptian market. And all of these combined measures had a very positive impact and I would say reduced the market volatility significantly. And since that date, probably the 19th of March, we haven't witnessed excess volatility as it was the case prior to that date in that regard.
Great. So the whole participants, everyone that was in this process of managing the pandemic thing in your market, which is good, and which was actually, it was visible from the communication, from the Egyptian exchange communication through all the channels. So it was visible from our side as well. So great job, I think, you have done during the pandemic and the management of pandemic. So now coming to the next step, what are the key strategic initiatives that EGX is working on at this moment?
We have three strategic initiatives. One we started implementing, or actually two of them we started in the implementation phases of it. The first is a complete revamp for the SMEs market that we have in the Egyptian exchange. And we started already in implementing, and this has been conducted with some help from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, whereby we developed a certain plan trying to improve and increase the visibility and increase the quality of companies listed on this SMEs board in the Egyptian market. So basically, this is one key strategic initiative because we believe part of, I would say, accessibility of financial services is accessibility to capital markets, and the stock exchange is at the heart of capital markets. So basically improving the quality, inducing investors by ensuring that the quality of companies that are getting to be listed, even if they are small in size, however, we're trying to ensure that there would be sufficient quality and the required quality to ensure that institutional investors would have some interest in these types of companies. So that's one important strategic initiative. Another strategic initiative is to establish the spot market, is to participate in the establishment of a spot market for commodities, because this is a key pillar that would build upon it derivatives on commodities once we have the spot market up and running and hopefully actively traded. And in this regard, we are not doing it ourselves only. Basically, we need to coordinate with market participants, investment banks, even the relevant ministries and public bodies are participating with us in the inauguration of this, I would say, exchange, to be able to have this regulated and orderly market for specific types of commodities and mercantiles. So these are the two main initiatives that we're working on, and probably the third initiative is basically touching upon your third question, which would be the derivatives market and the CCP. So basically, we at EGX, we are more or less ready when it comes to the entire plan. What is pending is for the regulatory framework to be up there and to decide on the potential ownership structure of these I would say derivatives markets and associated CCPs. So basically, these are the four main, I would say, initiatives that we're trying to cover during the coming period.
Great. Yes, but you are right about my third question about derivatives on CCP. Actually, the CCP topic is the trending one now, in also connected with this pandemic. How the CCP was resilient, the CCP organizations were resilient. So thanks for this. I will proceed to another question about the financial literacy. So before the pandemic, EGX was very active in financial literacy front. The campaigns, advertising campaign, activities with universities, a lot of stuff. We are very happy for this, for our member. How did you continue this kind of work? What do you plan to do, and how the communication has been changed, or it hasn't been changed?
Well, definitely the pandemic in its initial, I would say, phases and stages had its impact on the activity associated with financial literacy, because definitely when you have excessive volatility, it's quite difficult to explain why it is natural to see excessive volatility when you have this type of uncertainty. But with the stabilization of the markets, basically the pandemic, even though it had halted probably how we have been operating before it, but it enabled us to work from different angles and actually initiate things. And probably the FIAS talks you have, I don't know, maybe taken it from EGX talks and IR talks. So
A lot of
basically,
thoughts.
we initiated something whereby we increased the communication between the listed companies across investors, and created a special series and platform whereby those, I would say, either CEOs of companies, IR, investor relations of companies, do communicate directly with, and through connectivity, electronic connectivities, go get directly and meet, I would say, brokerage houses, investment banks, investment management firms, and so on and so forth, to increase, because ultimately people need to be aware that ultimately we're working through a value chain. You have the supply side of companies and their disclosures and the quality of the management and so on. And then you have the intermediation process at exchanges and the associated trading platforms and trading mechanisms that are an enabler for stocks to be traded and bonds to be traded and so on and so forth. And then you have the demand side, whereby these are the investors, and you need to link, I would say, the entire value chain to be able to have an impact at the point of time. Another initiative that we embarked on, probably that would be related to another question, but I embarked on it, was creating competitions amongst youngsters on our social network pages, and to induce, I would say, young investors and potential investors to get to read more about capital markets, about the benefits of diversification, about the benefits of having incremental long-term, I would say, saving mechanisms, and that it's not one size fits all. That is quite an important aspect. And it doesn't have to be that you are the expert of investing to be able to invest in capital markets. Capital markets are available for small investors, large investors, qualified or very much knowledgeable investors. And you can be a passive investor, a long-term passive investor as well, if you don't have the sufficient time and knowledge to be able to invest. And these are the principles that we try to either educate through our financial competitions or through financial literacy programs. And we provided training for potential investors and new incumbents in that regard. Adding to that, probably we're going to resume our traditional or our media campaign and so on and so forth in the coming few months, after we get to see that, after we have seen that the volatility levels have been going down a little bit, and this is an enabler to attract new set of investors to come to the market. So basically, we will be reactivating that point going forward. And but ultimately, financial literacy is one of the key components and challenges, not only in the Egyptian market, if you ask my opinion, and that would be on a global scale. Probably after the global financial crisis in 2008, 2009, and the Eurozone crisis, and all other types of crises that we got to see, the level of financial literacy and investment literacy, it's not only financial, it's financial inclusion, investment inclusion, availing information and knowledge, has been hit in general in all markets. And that's why it is of paramount importance to get to see exchanges, and other market participants, because not only a single entity can affect the desired change that we're talking about, but all participants in the capital markets field and the financial sector should be participating in that regard. And that's why we took a hard turn when it comes to improving the financial literacy and improving, I would say, investment knowledge amongst the youngsters to increase, I would say, the investor base for investors.
Yeah, but thank you for this comprehensive answer. Yeah, financial literacy is the top topic in the capital market of all countries. There is no exception here. And FAS is also in this topic, and thanks to you, and we are working together in this regard. Also, I would like to mention that for our people who are watching this interview about the competition. The name of this competition is Mohamed Competition for Financial Culture, which has been started and launched mid-pandemic to the social media channel. And Dr. Farid, when we will see the results of this competition? Will this be available for the public?
It was announced, and the people winning it already have been informed. Yeah, and specific videos with them, and we're going to repeat it going forward. With a new set of questions for people to participate, and we get to choose randomly amongst the people who answered correctly. So, and everything was done in a transparent way to ensure the participation. The more people participate in those venues, the more they get to know what is happening. And as well, bear in mind that it's not sufficient to just present questions and to post questions, but as well we developed, I would say, a series of infographics on our website, and we revamped our website to be more accessible to investors and for more people to get to know what is happening in the market in terms of data, in terms of PE ratios, how many company distributed cash dividends during a particular year. So all of these aspects we get to post on our website. So it's not only a matter of just posting questions, but it is the entire ecosystem around it, the entire information ecosystem, let's put it that way, to enable people to participate and to acquire the required knowledge. And then as well, one of the initiatives, we developed a small, I would say, brochure or book that we went to the books forum, in Egypt, whereby we had a certain, I would say, booth presenting the book and how it is quite simple to get to learn on a gradual basis how to invest and how to incrementally save in the capital market. So this is part of our plan. Yeah.
So EGX is fully in boosting financial literacy. Great. Good luck in this. Coming to the next point, to the technology. Where is your country standing in terms of adopting new technologies and new trends?
Well, when it comes to technology, we are adopting quite advanced technologies in general, and that was quite a number of years ago. If you're talking about specifically blockchain and these type of trends, I believe it's quite early for anyone, and specifically during the pandemic, to start adopting these types of technologies early on. And even when you look, and probably it's not, these types of trends and technologies are not probably that connected to exchanges. It's more connected to clearing and settlement. If we're talking about the blockchain and having a distributed ledger for the transactions, for the settlement of the transactions and the ownership of the particular asset. So in terms of technology, we're using quite advanced the traditional technologies. The new trends we are tinkering, it doesn't have to be from a blockchain perspective, but we have one of our subsidiaries more or less is either participates with other entrepreneurs and I would say young companies that are thinking about electronic KYC, that are thinking about other ideas that would further enable investors to participate easily in the markets. Or that another subsidiary that is already an IT technology development platform. And one of the platforms that they have developed was an electronic voting mechanism and system for board meetings and general assembly meetings, because one of the challenges, and probably that is one of the things that we have adopted to ensure the continuity of business, despite not being capable of people meeting during the pandemic itself. So it was quite of paramount importance to develop a mechanism that would enable investors to participate in general assembly meetings, and that is called e-Majlis. Majlis is board in Arabic, so basically it's an electronic board that, yeah. So it's an e-Majlis program through our subsidiary called EGID, which is the Egyptian Information Dissemination Company. So here we are not only adopting new technology, but as well we are basically trying to promote and invent further services and technologies to enable companies to operate in their normal businesses.
Great. So technological part is also very active on your side. Coming to the emotional part, you mentioned in the beginning that EGX has taken a lot of measures for the safety of employees and during this pandemic times. But how are you encouraging your employees to stay positive, not to get into this negativity things, and to move forward with the positive aim? How are you doing this?
Well, the starting point is to ensure them that their health is one of the key aspects. So this in itself is ensuring them that the entity it's not only about the workplace, it's about the workplace, about your health, about your life, that we care about and we take it seriously in that regard. The second aspect, we ensure them through various board decrees and decisions that we will be backing you in case of anything bad happens to you, God forbid, when it comes to the coronavirus or being hospitalized or anything. And the entire entity would be backing you to ensure that you, your family as well, and even your parents are not badly inflicted by such a pandemic, or at least we are there financially and morally to support these cases. And probably those two important pillars are the key aspects for them to be, I wouldn't say motivated, but at least calm when it comes to dealing with the pandemic and not having, I would say, anxieties associated on how can we deal as families, as members of the exchange, employees of the exchange, how can we deal if several person in a certain family got to receive this pandemic, this virus, how they're going to deal with it. We ensured them that we are backing you, and you need not to worry about this aspect, and you need not to have anxiety towards this issue. Have anxiety about any other issue, but not about this issue.
So yeah, empathy and support from your side. Great to have this from the company. I know this is the important thing for employees. And the very last question, in your personal opinion, Dr. Farid, what will the life look like after the pandemic? And what new challenges will be there in our new life?
Probably that's the last and the toughest question, I have to say. Well, definitely life will change. I mean, life changed, let's put it that way. We need to accept that the modus operandi pre-pandemic would be very different than post-pandemic when it comes to everything, travel, meetings, technologies adopted, everything would be quite different. But it's not only from that perspective. The pandemic showed us that investments in areas that has always been deemed sluggish in terms of the returns and the number of years is quite takes a long time, basically, like in the health, education, and so on and so forth. But this showed us that it is of paramount importance to increase the level of investments in general in these areas to ensure that we have the sufficient arsenal to deal with such pandemic and anything that can come up in the future, because probably, yes, of course, every 100 years or 100+ years, you get to see a pandemic of that magnitude. like the previous one was the Spanish flu, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1918 something, and within those years. So here we're talking about 100 years to see something of that magnitude. But we've seen, I would say, some not initiatives. We've seen some cases whereby, yes, it has been controlled quite early, but it could have went out of hand in that regard. So investments in the area, in the fields of research associated with healthcare, medicine, and so on, we're going to see that this is going to be highly impacted positively in that area. And then there will be some, I would say, aspects associated with the usual B2B moving to B2C, given that the middlemen are being cut significantly because of the pandemic and the curfews that took place during that period. And then one last point that people are starting to realize that they cannot take anything for granted. So basically, that is an important aspect, and that we need to be appreciative if we are in good health, can breathe properly without being afraid of breathing. So this in itself is changing how businesses are being done. Travel would be very different. Of course, we still have tourism, but the travel needs are going to be quite different, and the travel frequency is going to be very different. Technology, the rise of technology would be what used to take 10 years for adoption, probably it will take weeks, months, and very few years compared to the 10, 15 years plans of adopting new technologies and relying on technology extensively in that regard. So how this is going to unfold is still yet to be known, but definitely there would be a significant change with new sectors rising and other sectors declining. But the most important thing would be the hopefully increased humanity and thankfulness for what we have going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Farid. Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, Armando.